If I were to have approached you 6 years ago and said, in 6 years, a former CIA director and a host for MSNBC would be calling for the execution of former President Donald Trump after the FBI raided his home, would you have believed me? There's no way you would have, because people didn't believe me when I said that the culture war would reach the highest levels of government and that we very well may reach civil war. Even right now, it's hard for people to believe. I mean, there's a question of, did they actually call for Trump's execution? Well, as Mediaite reports it, they're accused of suggesting Trump should be executed. Just suggesting he should be executed. Okay, here's what happened. A guy from MSNBC tweeted a series of things about how Trump may have had nuclear documents, and then just in an unrelated and coincidental manner, tweeted out an image of two individuals who were executed for leaking nuclear secrets. That is to say, I don't want to go over the top and suggest these individuals came out and said legitimately Trump should be executed. They suggested if the story is true, or if the accusations that Trump had nuclear documents, if that is true, then look at these other people who got executed. I'm not playing games. We know why they posted that. As if to say, you will be executed, others have been, or perhaps should be. We get the insinuation. Now, maybe there's going to come and be like, no, I mean, we just meant like it had happened before, just letting people know, like important context. Okay. But when you come out and you say, hey, Trump did bad thing. Oh, by the way, here's what happens to people who do bad thing. I think we get it. And in my opinion, this is them trying to broach that Trump be executed in the lightest way possible, but they want it in your mind. They want it in the mind of their supporters. I think it's probably more shock media than anything. I don't think they actually care all that much about the repercussions or Trump. I think they're just trying to shock and generate traffic or make a statement, because anybody who actually understands where we're going with civil war would probably be like, hey, please, like, calm it down, guys. But this is where we are. The extent to which we have reached a major conflict. And I mentioned this in an earlier segment, but I'm gonna show it again, because when this story dropped, I didn't believe it. And then I looked at the tweets and I said, oh, this guy tweeted. He didn't say anything about Trump. He just tweeted a picture of these people who got executed over nuclear documents. Then you look at the entirety of his Twitter history and you're like, oh, he's been tweeting. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I think I know how he tweeted that. And then Michael Hayden, former CIA director, retweeted it and said, sounds something to the effect of, I want to make sure I get the quote right. He said, sounds about right. People are implying that Donald Trump may have given secrets to Moscow. In response to this tweet, one of this man's followers said there were private Russian flights going to Florida on the 9th, and I thought Trump was fleeing, but now he may have been leaking nuclear documents to Russia. Yes, this is Blue Anon. It's a conspiracy crackpot cult, but they're prominent. It's MSNBC. It's a former CIA director. These people are nuts. And this is why we are heading in this direction. Now, we have reporting about Trump, apparently he had nuclear documents, according to two sources who weren't involved in the raid on his house, but knew of what the agents were doing. So it's like double hearsay, unverified. Yeah, great. Good work, Washington Post. And shout out to our good friends over at NewsGuard for deeming that responsible. Well, I will give a shout out to them legitimately, because they called MSNBC fake news. Okay, fine. I can respect that one, because that one's at least right. When they're targeting their own authoritarian propaganda machine because of the obvious lies and they can't hide anymore, fine, I'll take it. But I tell you, my friends, this is the kind of thing that precipitates civil war. You may not think it's all that big of a deal that this guy suggested that you could be executed, that Trump could be executed. That's kind of his insinuation. Maybe you think it's just rhetoric, it's online. But these people who follow him are seeing it, and it's ramping things up repeatedly. Now, we just had a guy go to an FBI office and try shooting into it. He posted all over Truth Social. People on the right think it's a false flag. Washington Post is reporting that he was a prominent user. There's a lot going on. And now Russia is saying they believe a civil war is coming. They said that the U.S. will fall into civil war following the FBI raid on Donald Trump that was signed off on by Merrick Garland. Dark days indeed. That's what Trump said. He said dark days. Let's read this story. And I'll show you exactly what the context is, and I'll break down why I think this was It was a statement that Trump would be executed pending this story. I don't want to go over the top with it, but I think the context is clear. Before we read the story, head over to timcast.com and become a member to support our work and get access to our exclusive timcast.com shows, such as the Timcast IRL Uncensored After Hours show, Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m., as well as Tales from the Inverted World. Our reporter Shane Cashman went to find the lost Confederate gold. It's really fun stuff. You'll want to check this show out. We've got more shows coming for you. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Let's read this first story from Mediaite. They say, former CIA director accused of suggesting Trump should be executed over nuclear docs. What a terrible headline, guys. You could at least say, like, former CIA director retweets statement about execution related to these leaking of documents in the context of Donald Trump. I don't know how you want to phrase it, but I think they're worried about libel and liability. Okay, well, in my personal opinion, I can break this down for you. Former CIA Director Michael Hayden was accused of suggesting Donald Trump should be executed over a report that the FBI searched his Mar-a-Lago property for nuclear weapons-related documents. Now, that's not what was reported by MSNBC, but you see how information laundering occurs. On Thursday, Hayden responded to a tweet from MSNBC contributor Michael Beschloss, referring to Julius Rosenberg and Ethel Rosenberg, a couple executed in 1953 after sharing nuclear secrets with Moscow. Beschloss did not refer to Trump in the tweet. Yes, but all of his tweets before and after this one were about Trump and the nuclear code. I'll show you. Sounds about right, Hayden wrote in response. Why would a guy from MSNBC be tweeting this out right now of all times? Though Hayden did not mention Trump either. Some took his tweet to mean he was saying Trump should potentially face a similar fate as the Rosenbergs. NBD, just a former NSA and CIA director, out here suggesting that Trump should be executed. Washington Examiner's Jerry Dunleavy tweeted about Hayden. The letter he refers to, a document signed by intelligence officials dismissing Hunter Biden's infamous laptop as Russian disinformation. Hayden is a retired Air Force general who served under Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama. The Washington Post reported on Thursday that the FBI's search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago property was to search for classified documents related to nuclear weapons. Fake news. Fake news. They said that this is amazing. They said they were nuclear documents, and to what they pertain to, they weren't sure. And it could have been domestic. It could have been foreign. You know what? I'll give them that one. But it said nuclear documents. I don't know if it was referring to weapons or power plants or otherwise. Nuclear weapons issue is a hoax, just like Russia was a hoax. 2 impeachment were a hoax. The Mueller investigation was a hoax, and much more. Same sleazy people involved, the former president wrote. Okay. When I first saw this story, I said, dude didn't suggest anything. Dude was just pointing out that some people have been executed if they've done this. Yeah, and then I looked at the guy's tweets. First, Michael Beschloss, here's what he tweeted. Rosenbergs were convicted for giving U.S. nuclear secrets to Moscow and were executed June 1953. This is from yesterday morning at 9 p.m. at night. Okay, well, that's it. There's no reference to Trump, right? Okay, let's take a look at his previous tweets. Yesterday, he tweeted this out. Let me show you some of his earlier tweets. 17 hours ago, FBI searched Trump's home to look for nuclear documents and other items, Washington Post is now reporting. I now hereby repost my tweet from this afternoon. Michael Beschloss said, what if a classified document on U.S. handling of nuclear weapons or names of CIA agents was given or sold by or stolen from an ex-president who had stashed it in his basement? A bold assumption or claim about what Trump may have done. Then he says, I'm reposting it because now they're reporting on nuclear documents. He then tweeted, Trump's lawyer and pal, Roy Cohn, reviled the Rosenbergs for passing out American nuclear secrets. Remember, where's my Roy Cohn? Any possibility that certain foreign governments Trump loves wanted American nuclear secrets from him? Then he tweeted about the execution. Then he tweeted, talking to Ali Velshi, this hour about new Washington Post story that FBI was searching in Trump's house for documents containing American nuclear weapons secrets. Well, that's a bold jump. Is that what they reported? First, it was just about nuclear documents. In the report from the Washington Post, they don't say whether it's American or otherwise. He then says, if Trump took home classified documents on nuclear secrets. Will his national amen corner bless that too? American nuclear secrets handed the wrong people could wind up killing American infants and children. Essential now that we see the warrant tomorrow at 3 p.m. and not 1 minute later. General Michael Hayden then tweeted sounds about right, and Michael Beschloss retweeted it. The insinuation is clear. This man is accusing Trump or stating that it's very possible and he wants to dig into whether or not Trump was selling secrets. But don't forget about the people who got executed for doing this. Insanity. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say he's calling for Trump to be executed, but suggesting he could be, quite simply, true. This is crazy. In response to his tweet, one person said, there were private Russian-owned planes flying to Florida on January 9th. I thought back then maybe Trump trying to bolt, but now I think it might be something else. Really? Someone said, yes, that Russian dude's plane is still on the ground at Palm Beach. Hasn't moved since the 6th of January. One person said, he's going to Mar-a-Lago on the 19th. He's going to bolt while he's still president and can. He told his followers it's clear. Yeah. These crazy blue anon people, they believe this insane stuff, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're right. It doesn't matter if they're wrong. What matters is they exist and they believe it. Now, many people may on the right want to say facts don't care about your feelings, but feelings don't care about your facts all the same. These people don't care about what's true. They care about what they believe, and that's all that matters. So I'm going to play for you this clip. Hopefully it plays. And I played this earlier today, but I'm going to play it again from the Joe Rogan podcast. Please enjoy this 1-minute segment.
Yeah. It's scary shit.
It really is. I mean,
this stuff was going through my head when I did the stupid essay in 2017. And at the time, it was like, even saying that out loud, even being like, there could be a civil war was like, felt insane.
But
I'm like, but look at, like, just play the movie forward. Like, what happens?
Tim Pool said that on my podcast years ago, and I thought he was just going way too over the top. He said, I think we're going to civil war. I'm like, what the fuck? Come on, man. Relax. But now I'm like, ooh, maybe he was right. I mean,
let's not, though. It would be better if we could. If
for
we could
sure.
Not.
Let's not.
By a wide margin.
By a wide margin. Let's not. But at least we are most certainly in some sort of a battle of ideas that is so uncharitable and so rigid in its its sides and its ideologies. It fucking freaks me out.
Shout out, Joe. I played it in my earlier segment, but I think in the context here, after I saw the story about the tweet about execution, I was just like, I gotta dig into this again. I normally don't like to do that. It's like I talked about this in the morning, but there's a lot more to go through. Russia is now saying a civil war is coming to the United States. And I really do want to show you this context just because, for one, I respect Joe. He's awesome. And I went on his show years ago and I said, I think we're headed towards civil war. And you saw his response. He's like, get out of here, man. You're nuts. But here we are. Here's the crazy thing. When this episode was posted, Joe pre-records his show, okay? And depending on the individual, sometimes a longer gap. Because like if you record like on I don't know the exact days, but you could record with Joe and then he waits to the weekend to post on Monday, so days could go by. I went on his show, we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse, and then he didn't actually publish the episode until after Rittenhouse was already acquitted. But the point here is, this show was recorded. Joe has the recording. In the morning of the day this show was posted, a man went to an FBI office and fired at FBI agents, failed to breach the bulletproof glass, is what I believe is the story, was pursued, and then during a 5-hour standoff, ultimately was killed, refusing to surrender. Joe didn't know about that. And I know Joe didn't know about that because he pre-records his show. It's remarkable to me. I mean, the timing. They're right when they like, we always bring this up like, please, no civil war. What can we do to stop it? And I'm like, bro, I don't know. I've seen conflict. You don't want it. It's scary, man. Being in Egypt during the revolution is scary days. Joe said before the FBI incident happened, we may be heading towards civil war. It's crazy to me. The timing on this one, because when people mentioned he said this, I was like, hey, wait a minute. That means Joe didn't know about the guy at the FBI office. So the same day this comes out, we have that moment. I wonder what he's going to say next. When he's like, whoa, dude, a guy went to the FBI with guns? Yeah, bro. Civil war. I don't know what to tell you, man, but the conversation is here. The conversation is escalating. Never before in American history, the FBI searches a former president's home. Never before. Here we are from Newsweek. Russian state TV suggests potential U.S. civil war as a result of Trump raid. Dude, I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. Look, we are on track for a civil war, but let me make it clear. Several years ago, as Rogan pointed out, I was talking about the potential. A train on a track has several options to divert when the track splits. But without intervention, the train will just keep going forward. At the end of this track, there is a big red stop sign, and behind it, a cliff. But no one's got their foot on the brake. And who's going to pull the lever to divert the train? I don't know how to do it. Do you? I don't know, maybe. If this train does not stop or divert, it will crash into that barrier and go careening off the cliff. But maybe before then, someone will pull the lever and the train will divert. I can't see the future. I can only see the track we're on. And when you've got an MSNBC host and a former CIA director saying, like, hey, man, maybe Trump did this. People who do this get executed. Come on, man. It's one thing to be like, lock her up over and over again when you accuse someone of committing a crime. It's another when they're like, penalty is death. Here's what Russia has to say. The FBI search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida has sparked outrage among Kremlin propagandists on Russian state TV, who went as far as predicting that the raid might trigger a civil war in the U.S. Now, when you got Russia and Joe Rogan being like, man, in a stunning escalation of the investigation into the former president's potentially unlawful removal and destruction of documents, federal investigators executed a search warrant. The FBI search, which Trump described as assault, we get. It was widely covered by Russian state media, with pro-government TV host Vladimir Solovyov expressing his admiration for Trump and his GOP allies during his show on Monday evening, as reported by the Daily Beast journalist Julia Davis. On the same day, Russian military expert Igor Korochenko, a guest on Russian TV program 60 Minutes, called the FBI raid a witch hunt, where Trump, as the most popular politician in the United States, was chosen as such a witch. Trump probably is the most popular, but also the most hated. I mean, for real. They won't just be vilifying him, they will be strangling him. These raids involving dozens of FBI officers and police dogs. This is worse than McCarthyism, my friends. This is a symbol of inordinate despotism. The host of 60 Minutes, Evgeny Rozhkov, described the raid as an event that shook the U.S. and the world perhaps more than the nuclear threat. It is not clear whether the raid on Trump's residence was directly related to the alleged disappearance of evidence related to the January 6th riot at the Capitol, but we know that Trump has previously been accused of transferring documents, etc., etc., etc. He then speculated the raid could trigger conflict in the U.S. as Trump supporters rise to support their leader. Could this be the beginning of a civil war, he asked on Tuesday, as quoted by Davis. This is totally unprecedented. I don't remember anything like this in American history. If Trump calls on his supporters to come out, and half the states are led by Trump's allies, they'll be hell to pay. This is fun for everyone except for Americans. They don't know what awaits them next. Let's just say that if the civil war starts over there will be only one big question for Russia: whom to support with weapons. That's right. That's right. And I really do wonder, man. I do. I actually believe that China and Russia may actually arm Trump supporters in the event of a civil war. Now, that's what you need to understand. In the American Revolution, what happened? France intervenes and assists the colonists. Why? It's simple. You're at war with somebody else's. You say, we can get these guys to help us. They want help. Let's team up. Simply put. In the American Civil War, something similar. Foreign entities were looking at who to supply with weapons and loan. Who do they think is going to win? There's bets to be made in war, baby. Now, a lot of people think that the left, China, would support the establishment. I'm not entirely convinced. While it may be bad for China in a lot of ways if Trump wins, maybe better. Donald Trump is staunchly America first. He wants American borders secured. He doesn't care about foreign excursions. China wants to do oil exploration in Africa and South America. They want to be unimpeded. Trump would enact America First policy, and China would then carry out a lot of that mission without consequence. Russia, same thing. Trump wants peace in the Middle East. This could potentially create opportunities for Russia and China. Dare I say, the threat of China's expansion is probably bad in this regard. With Donald Trump de-escalating tensions with Russia is probably good because war is just already through the, going nuts. Yeah, who would they support with weapons? I don't think Russia would support the Biden administration, or whoever is involved, the Democrats. But China might, because Trump doesn't like them, and Trump supporters don't like him. I don't know. I really don't know, man. I can only show. You can look at the data in real time. You can see it happening. Andrew Yang said, instead of a two-party system, more and more of the country is now essentially a one-party system as each party has stopped competing in most of the other parties' urban-rural turf. I don't think Andrew Yang understands what he's saying here in the modern context of what's happening. Here we can see more and more counties are uncompetitive. In this map, in 1992, you see very little deep red and very little deep blue, but a decent amount, all over the place. The darker the splotches on the map, the higher it is in one direction, Republican or Democrat. In 96, you see more red areas. In 2000, substantially more red areas. The dark red, it's uncompetitive. You're not going to win. In 2004, it spreads. In 2008, it spreads. In 2012, it's spread. By 2016, the country is split overwhelmingly deep red or deep blue. Andrew Yang continues. Up to 70% of local races are now uncontested or uncompetitive. The Forward Party can help support meaningful choices in parts of the country one or the other has given up on, which is the vast majority of the U.S. Yeah, Yang is wrong about that. Unfortunately, I don't think his party is going to save anybody. But what the map shows is the hyperpolarization and the geographic polarization. How could a civil war start? Just like this. These areas are becoming more and more ideologically divided, and they're not going to come together. This map is showing you the escalation of civil conflict in the United States and how it's unfolding in real time. So, Joe, what I would say when he says I think he might be right, it's more than that, dude. I think I'm probably more right than even I want to admit. I want to hedge my bet and say maybe it won't happen. I don't know. It sounds crazy even to me. Like, could it really happen? But then you look at this and you're like, all signs point to it. What did Joe's guest say? Play the movie forward. Yeah. I also say play the movie backward. That's why I say if you go back in time and ask someone, if you went back 6 years and said, hey, in 6 years, this is what we're going to see, they wouldn't believe you. All of this stuff, they'd be like, shut up. No way. Frogs in a pot boiling. We have Ian Crossland on Timcast IRL, and he mentions, we're not in a civil war. One crazy guy doesn't make a civil war. And I'm just like, that's it right there. I disagree. It's not one guy. It's elements of the government. It's the FBI. It's the former president. It's 74 million Trump supporters. It's all the people who hate Trump. You have a hard split. It's Aaron Danielson taking 2 to the chest. It's Kyle Rittenhouse fighting for his life and being locked up. It's the billions of dollars in damage during the summer of love. It's January 6th. It is not just one guy. But if you have a myopic view, and if you are not paying attention, surely you're a frog in a pot boiling, not realizing what is emerging around you. So when I see Michael Hayden and this MSNBC contributor saying, like, look at these people who got executed. Also, Trump may have done this too. We know what the point is. This is crazy. From Insider. FBI search of Trump's Mar-a-Lago reignites conservative calls for a civil war. It's a lie. People on the right aren't calling for a civil war. Nobody wants a civil war. But people on the right are mentioning that it's happening. It's just crazy, this idea that there needs to be a single individual be like, I hereby declare civil war. No. What's going to happen is that one by one dominoes fall over, and then before you realize it, you are in it. And you'll ask yourself, when did it become a civil war? They didn't call World War I World War I. They called it the Great War. It's funny. I can't remember what I was watching, but like some sci-fi show, someone goes back in time, and they're like, they're like, good luck in World War I, and they're like, World War I? Because back then they didn't know there was going to be a part 2. World War I, the Great War, and World War II. That's what we called them. People didn't know. So right now, what are they calling it? In 10 years, people are going to be like, oh, the Civil War, huh? Insider says, an attack on Trump is an attack on true American patriotism, one Twitter user wrote on Tuesday. Civil war will end up being Biden's government versus Americans' patriots. Does that mean they're calling for civil war or pointing out it's coming? Another supporter wrote, why would FBI raids Trump's home, but Biden's and Clinton's they would never touch? Civil war is coming, folks, and it will not be pretty. Doesn't sound like they're calling for it. Carrie Lake threatened to invoke the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Over the FBI search. It's not the first time Trump supporters or extremist groups have threatened to ignite a civil war. They're not now. But this is why I think we'll get one. Business Insider is making sure that anybody who is not paying attention to the news is believing the lies. Jamie Raskin did it. Jamie Raskin included a video of me reading the news and implied that I personally was calling for people to come down on January 6th. They said, pro-Trump YouTuber. And it was me being like, in Fox News' story, Donald Trump says, Fox News reports, Trump says it's going to be wild on January 6th. And he's probably right. And hey, I was right about that. Amazing, huh? I didn't tell anybody to go there. In fact, I said there'd probably be violence. And I said it's going to come from like the Proud Boys and other right-wing groups. It's going to be more organized. Turns out I was right in my predictions. This is what they want to do. They want you in a bubble. They don't want you to be able to see the truth. So my reporting of the news and my accurate predictions get turned into support. And then my incorrect predictions are highlighted as I'm just someone who's often wrong. But here I am, several years on with Joe Rogan being like, I think Tim may be right. They're reporting now that they've recovered classified documents from Trump. But I think we knew that Trump had them. Trump can declassify whatever he wants the moment he says it. So what's the argument? This is what the media is doing. In the first paragraphs, none of these people threatened civil war. They just said it was coming because they're kind of seeing it happen. Now they're saying it's a threat. The Washington Post reports FBI attacker was prolific contributor to Trump's Truth Social website. Am I right or am I wrong? I'd like you to go back to 2019 when I appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast with Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gadde. Near the end of the episode, I said that if Twitter kept doing this, it will result in some kind of chaos or crisis or civil war or something to that effect. I can't remember what I exactly said, but I said something about that. And, I talked to Joe and I said, you ban people from Twitter. Eventually, they make their own website. They form their own communities. They are segmented and separated away from the others. And then they become more and more at odds with each other. It's happening, man. I thought about this. When I see this guy, Beschloss guy or whatever, implying the execution or stating Trump could be executed, I wonder about who's fueling this. And you see this post that I mentioned where the guy says, I thought Trump was fleeing. And I'm like, what if this is just China? What if China is running bot accounts and posting things to inflame tensions? Because that's what's happening. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know for sure, man. I really, really don't. Insider reports, Trump allies think there's a traitor in Mar-a-Lago who informed on him to the FBI. The FBI came to Trump and said, put a padlock on this door. Giuliani says it was their padlock. Then the FBI comes and breaks the padlock and takes documents. That implies to me these are different FBI groups. I've seen a bunch of movies where, actually, what did I just watch? The Gray Man. Don't think it was all that good. But in it, it's about like corrupt government officials, basically. So, yeah, it's possible. Corruption exists. Could it be that a rogue supervisor at the FBI ordered the raid because he needed to know what Trump had? Even though he knew other FBI agents were already involved? It's possible. It's not a monolith. And individuals can take individual action to protect themselves, especially if they're engaged in corruption. These are crazy days, man. A big development, too, on all this is that Alex Berenson has reported earlier this morning the White House privately demanded Twitter ban him months before the company did so. The government is intervening to shut down people's speech. a clear violation of the First Amendment. No, it is. People say, like, it's not a violation of the First Amendment if Twitter bans you. It is when the government demands it. The government can't use proxies to silence people. That's still a violation of 1A. You take a look at what's going on now, what people are saying. Who gets banned? Who doesn't? Who gets approved as legitimate news and who doesn't? And what's happening now with look, the Washington Post can come out and say, we talked to two guys who claimed they know about what happened with the agents, but they weren't actually there. And they said, here's what happened. That's reporting. Doesn't matter. The information has already been laundered, and now people are suggesting Trump be executed. So you can, look, it's an opinion on my part. I'm sure many people are going to look at that tweet and be like, they legit want Trump executed. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't want to go that far, but I think all of this rhetoric points in one direction. Civil war. People think the Civil War will be like the Civil War was in the United States in the 1860s, but they failed to read history about other civil wars and how it went down, like in Spain, when the urban and rural areas were at odds with each other and started fighting. And then the fascists won and slowly took over. We don't need a North and a South. Bill Maher said, the Mason-Dixon line would go through Nana's kitchen. Right. But that's a misunderstanding of history and what civil wars really look like. The American Civil War was on a specific policy issue for the most part, slavery, and among other things. And so it broke on these lines. But now we have a culture war. We do have policy issues at play, but the divide is urban versus rural, like Spain, not like early America. So, how does it come down and when? Maybe it won't. Maybe the train will divert. I don't know. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.